recording on. All right, we're good.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining our August meetings. August already. All right. So on the agenda this month, we'll do our normal club business. We've got a special item to cover first. Gert's going to nominate someone for a lifetime membership for the club, so we'll cover that first. And then we'll do our regular membership and treasury update and social media updates. And then the main topic for this month, Marty K9MEG is going to give the main topic presentation on Zen and the art of antenna reconstruction, which sounds very interesting. So can't wait to get to that. So Gert, do you want to kick us off first with the lifetime membership nomination?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm just going to mention that all of us have really enjoyed and appreciated the content and timeliness of our website. And as a matter of fact, we have somebody to thank for that, who has done more than a simple website update, but has made it work beautifully. And that person's Carol. And I think for all the years and effort she's put in, I think making her a lifetime member would be absolutely appropriate. So all we need is the approbation of the membership. So all who say aye?
Aye.
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 Is Carol here?
Yes. Aye.
Okay.
I think it's a general consensus, and the ayes have it.
You must announce the call sign. Some of us don't know Carol's call sign.
Oh. And now, if you don't, you're deaf and blind. Anyway, yeah. Oh, I hate that. You know, like when somebody says, say something in front of a mic and then your mouth won't work. I can't think of her call sign to say it.
AP4MD.
AP4MD, yes.
Congratulations.
That same one.
Yeah, congratulations, Carol. Very well deserved. Is she actually on? I didn't see her in the list.
I don't see her.
If she's not in the queue, it'll be a grand surprise. And if she is, I hope she enjoys.
And I'm waiting for the host to let me in.
Oh.
But if they don't want me in, okay, fine.
You can play. You're allowed.
Tom, is there people in the waiting room since if you got in first? I think you have to click the admit, right?
I'm looking for somebody that isn't.
Hey, Kevin, can you let Murray in, please?
Yep. There's some latecomers. Here they come. There's like 8 of them.
Actually, it's Tom. Because Tom said, I'm here first. So now he's got to drive the truck.
All right.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, everyone.
Hi. Let's see if I can get my video to work. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Oh, hi, Alf.
I gotta change my background. Hold on, I gotta change my background.
Anybody we know? Before and after?
That's my niece. I affectionately call her Monkey Face. But I gotta change the background now. Hold on. It was her.
I don't know. It ain't all bad.
Looking after you.
I think
No,
Gert
this
has to
kid,
redo her statement. I think Gert has to repeat her prologue.
Yeah, I think Carol just joined. So do you want to repeat, Gert, what we just did? Or?
Well, something similar. So I will say just kind of generally that we've all been enjoying and appreciating the very well managed and presented website. And I think that we need to acknowledge that by, I would nominate Carol to have a lifetime membership, Carol, KP4MD, to have a lifetime membership because I think that she has more than earned it. And all we require is a consensus of the membership. So anybody who hasn't heard me before, you can put in an I for Carol.
Aye.
Hi.
Yeah, thanks,
I met her once. She's cool.
Thanks, Carol, for everything you do for the club. I think of anyone, of all of us, you go far above and beyond, and you have done for many years for everything you've done for the club. So thank you very much. And yeah, very well deserved. Thank you.
Thank you for this honor.
All right. All right, so we go back to regular business. Jojo, do you want to pick up with the membership update and treasury?
Okay, I will share my screen if I may. Good evening, everyone. This is the general membership meeting for tonight, August 3. And this is the report from the membership chair as well as the treasurer from Jojo KN6 HTD. So first part is we'll be talking about our members. We are happy to announce that we have a total of 146 members total, and 89 are ARRL members. That's 61% of the population. So that's composed of 135 general members, 2 complementary, and 9 life members. It'll be 10 after today. So congratulations, Carol, and thank you for your almost lifetime commitment. Thank you to those who applied for club membership after passing the ham exams in the Carmichael Elks Lodge. And we have 1 member who is rightfully present in our meeting. That's Alfredo, KN6PRD Gonzalez II. Hey, thank you for joining.
Hello.
And Donald, KN6PGH, joined from last month. That's Donald Sherman. So congratulations. And this is the very nice part for tonight. Congratulations. The Club Board of Directors recognizes and elects hams who exemplify strong amateur radio leadership, above and beyond contribution to the community, and exemplary attitude towards the good of the majority. Today, we are honoring 1 person who shines like our guiding star in the community. Congratulations, Dr. Carol, KP4ND. And this is your time to say your speech to inspire other hams.
Okay, all I can say is I am very thankful for the inspiration of all the other club members. And all I can say is pass it on. This is what we have to do. You know, this is our hobby. This is our passion. And the more you make of it, the more you put yourself into it, the more enjoyment you get out, and the more enjoyment you will share with all those in the hobby. So I feel absolutely honored, and this is a labor of love. Thank you to all. I also want to give congratulations to the club on its 45th anniversary, which it actually completed in July of this year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. And just a brief portion of the membership report. We like to mention this, that you get something with joining any amateur radio club. Please take advantage of having Elmers to give you tips and advice about your amateur radio journey. You can ask questions, you can exchange QSL cards among ourselves, meet up with each other in person, and participate in club and community events with a buddy. You won't be alone. And we have the N6NA 2-meter repeater. It's also open to non-members. You can invite your friends, even from other clubs. And a private 70-centimeter repeater. And we use that for our SSTV and local small area communication. You can participate in do-it-yourself electronics kit building. River City RCARCS is way ahead in terms of technical expertise and skills, from conceptual idea to schematics to prototyping and final kit building. I can tell you that because I belong to several, and River City is miles ahead with the theory and practice of amateur radio. So I commend our club for that. Then when you join ARRL, you get very informative and educational magazines with featured articles from around the world. Very exciting. And we have a member who was featured in the front page of the QST, and Hiroki Kato. But you can see him in the latest QST magazine. He built the cantenna. And the short story is that he always consumes coffee, and he accumulated this so many number of empty cans, and he made an antenna out of it. And in fact, there's another lined up kit building that he will lead, and something for the other members to discuss, because we still have the QRP watt meter ongoing. So to reach any other members of the club, just send a request to contact@n6na.org, and we protect everybody's privacy. We will welcome any of your emails, and we will address them appropriately. If I may bring into attention some members who I have not been able to reach nor confirm their current information, these are the names. If you know some of this, either by cell phone texting or maybe a better email, please send an email to contact@n6na.org, and please provide your current email addresses, please, or you can contact me. My number is there, 916-476-1688. I just remembered if we are recording the meeting.
We are.
Okay, thank you. So for the second part, let's talk about our treasury. We have bank funds amounting to 8,890.82, and we have over $2,000 repeater fund and almost $7,000 general fund. So the member dues renewal starts in September. That is to pay for 2022. And just as a reminder, it's $20 individual and additional $10 for family members under the same household. It's $5 for full-time students. So our club funds support business operations like club insurance, and then repeater maintenance, and then equipment. We're trying to purchase a better antenna for field day, and of course the other club activities. And we like to recognize and give our gratitude to our regular repeater donors, David, KM6GYM. Recently, we received donations from Philip Wysick, WM6DWD, and Bob Chavez, KJ6BBB. So thank you very much for supporting our repeater fund. And lastly, I'd like to share some recent news and events. We had the successful Bariani Bike Race amateur radio support last July 11. And this is an annual event. It was fun. It's the first time I've joined it. It was postponed because of COVID last year. So I encourage every ham to participate. You can let me know. Since we did a good job, we are expected to help them again next year. And it should be more exciting. This is through the YOLO, ARIS, and the Sacramento Amateur Radio Club. But Bob was there, I was there, and we're representing River City ARCS somehow. Second is the invitation to the upcoming Morse Code or CW class offered by the Samuel F. Morse Club, W6SFM, this September 15. It's an in-person and Zoom event. So it's a hybrid meeting. The tuition is affordable, and you will receive a straight key that you can use and keep even after the course. So Wilson and I were part of that. Marty also is our batchmate or classmate, and we had fun. We hope to continue using our skills, and we invite you. If you have questions anytime, you can let me know.
Yeah.
And number 3, we are calling for California International Marathon Amateur Radio Support sign up. It's open now, and this will happen in December. If you are interested, please go to sacramentoaris.org website. I already signed up. So you won't be alone if you are interested. Number 4, we have a scheduled drill for all the hospital hams. It's called the HeartNet. It'll be on September 7. So we are calling all stations with connections to the hospitals for an exercise using the N6 ICW repeater. I have collected the net control operators so far. I was trying to get who the prior NCS were, but this is Charles W6SOM. He's our member, as well as another Charles, also our member, WG6CFS. So UC Davis, Sutter, VA Medical, Dignity Health are represented. So if you are connected to any of the healthcare facilities, you are more than welcome to join. Lastly, we had our first hospital VE session conducted in Methodist Hospital last July 30th. So we have a new ham in the South Sacramento Hospital. So I took some pictures. They already have their Go Kit box consisting of 2 Yaesu handheld radios, but they can only listen. So since they have a ham now, they have the right to push that press to talk button, and we welcome them. So these were the examinees and the VE. I mean the volunteer examiners. Not all of them passed, so we had to coach again, but we're happy to let them retake as often as they need to. And I was supposed to take a group picture, but the turnout wasn't that good enough to warrant a group picture. I set up a table with ARRL materials and brought some of my personal equipment so they would be inspired to maybe continue the journey. And we left them with that. And thank you. That is all my report. This is Jojo N6 HTD. I'll stop sharing.
Thanks, Jojo. Good update. Thanks. All right. Carol, can we hand over to you for club website update and social media?
Sure. Okay, are you seeing the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a report on our web resources for the past month. Again, congratulations to the club on the 45 years serving the Sacramento area here. Reminder, our website URL is n6na.org, and we have a calendar there with all our activities, our nets and meetings and major club events are always listed on the calendar if you ever have any questions about that, as well as information about upcoming meetings and a link to the newsletter as well, and information about our nets as well. And this is just a recap of our nets on Wednesdays. Tomorrow we will be on the 2-meter net at 8 p.m. Our 2-meter repeater also has access via Echolink and All-Star networks. 8:30 is a 10-meter net, and 9 o'clock is a slow scan TV net on the 441.30 repeater. Everyone is welcome to join us there. We also stream live on YouTube our slow scan TV sessions. DIY radio is still going strong. They're working on building a QRP watt meter. That's the project going on right now. And we have a swap page as well, where club members are welcome to send information on equipment or ham radio related items that they would like to sell or things that they're looking for. And we'll be glad to share it here on the website. For the month of July, our total page views went down a little bit from 3889 last month to 3721 this month. And the peak views were 1,020 on July 12th. The most active web page was the home page, 1,432 page views, and our 10-meter page, field day prep page, magnetic loop page, and another field day page there. So the source for most of our hits was direct to our URL and n6na.org. 48.2% of our visits came through there, and 45.5% were referred through Google. And again, most of our visitors were from California, 1,256. There were other states, 121 were from Texas, 100 were from Virginia, and lower numbers from other states and also other countries. You see all the countries that are colored in light blue here are also where we had visitors to our website at n6na.org. Social media is quite active. Our YouTube channel last month had almost 700 views. We have 331 subscribers and 7 new ones last month. Facebook page has 536 followers. And we do have our Twitter page with 140 followers and our Discord server chat room with 20 members. Just a reminder, if you have any input for the website or any of our social media feeds, go ahead and send an email to contact@n6na.org. If you want to contact any of the board members or the officers of the club, also you can email via contact@n6na.org and it will be directed to the appropriate person. And I'll turn it back to Kevin. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Carol.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any news items or anything else of interest for the club before we start on our main topic tonight? All right, okay. Marty, we'll hand over to you for the main topic.
Thank you, Kevin, and good evening, everyone. So antenna reconstruction, let me begin by telling you what I mean by antenna reconstruction, and then I'll follow up those definitions with some specific examples. So antenna reconstruction might be necessary if you have an antenna on your roof or in a tree or on your property someplace that's obviously, if it's damaged, if it has wind damage, something else blew into it, or maybe it's just lacking in performance. The performance has been declining over a period of time. That would be one occurrence. Another would be an antenna that you relocate, whether you relocate it from one side of your house to the other side of the house, maybe to a different place in your property, or relocate it to a totally different location. Another instance where antenna reconstruction might be appropriate is if you acquire a used antenna or a used antenna component, especially if you're unfamiliar with its background. So you're reading that, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what that means. Are you asking if he's sharing, Bob? Because he's not sharing anything yet.
And then the final definition is probably unique to me. Reconstruction might be the appropriate thing to do for those failed homebrew antenna projects that you had, because I know I have several of them. So I am going to begin with a project involving a multi-band 2-meter, 70-centimeter J-pole antenna. So these antennas come in a couple of different flavors. Here's some pictures right here. One is what they call the open space antenna. So this is just a piece of twin lead with a wire pigtail on it that goes to the SO239 connector. And this is typically used for temporary field deployments, like you would use in an area situation or something. And then similar but different is the more permanent base installation, which for all intents and purposes, it has something very similar to that bottom antenna inside that very specific piece of plumbing PVC, but make sure you understand the two aren't interchangeable. One is tuned to be used in open space. while the other, even though it looks kind of sort of the same, the other one inside the tube is tuned to be used inside the tube. Now, believe it or not, I have 4 of these antennas. I bought 2 of them commercially, one for my house and one for my job. And then at a later point, our club did a club antenna build where we built that top antenna, the base antenna. So I wanted to join in with the antenna build. So I built another one along with many other club members. And then my Elmer and I needed assistance making an antenna for an Aries Go box. My Elmer, Phil, KD6RM, he helped me build the field version of this antenna. So I have no shortage of these things. Now, I've had my base antenna mounted to my roof for a very long time, and it worked really, really well until it didn't. So what began happening is one of the nets I check into a couple, 3 times a week, the new net, the audio started to degrade very slowly and incrementally over time to where it got to the point where I couldn't hear what was being said. So I could no longer check into the net. Well, this was just not a problem because, like I said, I have 4 of these antennas. So I took down that antenna and put up another antenna in its place, and the problem was solved. And I immediately took the defective antenna and I stuck it behind the door in my Radio Shack, because out of sight is out of mind, and I still have a spare antenna. Until about a month ago, there's field day. And while at field day, a gentleman and I are having a conversation about VHF operations, and he describes to me this very same situation, the same net, the same slow degradation of the audio, and to the point where he could no longer participate. Come to find out, it's the exact same antenna. The only thing different is his antenna is mounted in his attic and my antenna was mounted on my roof. So that got me interested in this defective antenna. Plus, I had just acquired a super duper antenna analyzer and I was dying to use it. I actually had no idea how to use it, but that didn't stop me. I was going to use it to diagnose this antenna. So I hooked this thing up and I take a reading on it. And the app, and at the time I didn't have software, so I couldn't take a photo of it. I couldn't make a slide out of it. But the lowest SWR was 3.5 to 1. And on both edges of the band, it was closer to 6 to 1. Now, so what I did is I opened up the antenna and this is what I saw. So it became pretty obvious to me that, water obviously got into the antenna, settled at the bottom antenna. What you see are the antenna wire connectors going into an SO239, and that provides the connector for the coax to connect to it. Here's a different picture from a different angle. So this was a pretty easy fix. I simply purchased a new SO239 connection, installed it into the bottom cap of the antenna, I did some cleanup and some repairs to the wires and soldered those back on, put it on a test stand out in my front yard, and then proceeded to measure the SWR, and this is what I got. Now the SWR in this, the circle part is a Smith chart, but the SWR is this blue line going across the screen. And at its lowest point, it's about 1.5 to 1, but at its highest point, it's about 3 to 1. So from one person, well, let's just talk about the outcome. What is the outcome of this antenna reconstruction? And the outcome I'll classify as good, but not great. It's good because this SWR is just so much better than what I had before. But on the other hand, this SWR isn't that good. And what makes it more problematic is that I do some digital transmissions on VHF. And digital transmissions are something that they're classified as high duty cycle. And what high duty cycle is this. Normal duty cycle, for example, let's say SSB voice, is where you're transmitting a minority of the time and you're receiving a majority of the time. So the ratio of transmitting to receiving is very low. And that's good because when you're transmitting, you're putting power through your radio. Power is heat, and you don't want your radio to get too hot. Well, this heat issue is exacerbated by poor SWR because you're reflecting, instead of using all the power in your antenna, you're reflecting it back into your radio. And you could really harm your radio by overheating it due to this bad antenna. So again, this was a big, oh, and by the way, since I have two other of these antennas, I measured them both. They're both about exactly the same, all three antennas. So maybe it's something inherent to these types of antennas. I'm not really sure. So here's some tips. Don't do what I did. Don't just look at your antenna on your roof and say, wow, it looks beautiful, therefore it must be working beautifully, because that's not necessarily the truth. I really am lucky that I didn't blow up my radio because I don't know how long I was using it for that period of time. And secondly is don't think you need a super duper antenna analyzer to diagnose some of these antenna problems. This one was really simple. You just pull the cap off the bottom of the antenna, and the problem with the antenna was just abundantly clear. Okay, so that's example number one. And this example segues into my next example because I had to solve this high SWR on 2 meters so I would feel okay about doing digital without blowing up my radio. Now what you're seeing here is this is a photo of a failed quarter wave ground plane 2 meter antenna. So there's some mistakes here. First of all, I didn't use the right SO239, or it's just not the appropriate one for the job. Instead of having a socket that I could insert the center electrode from the PL259 in, it just had these flimsy brass fingers way down at the bottom that the center electrode of the PL259 smashes against. It's really sketchy. The second issue was, for some reason, I was committed to using stainless steel welding rod. I had a ground plane antenna up on my roof that was made out of copper, and it would get all oxidized, and you'd have to periodically clean it off, and it was kind of a pain. So I was committed to using stainless steel. And I tried to attach these somewhat heavy stainless steel radials using ring eyelets, ring connectors. This is a picture of a ring connector. And, you know, I imagine they sell better quality, but this is what I bought at the local hardware store. It wasn't substantial enough to support the radials. And it just, the whole thing was just poorly planned out. So I decided that I was going to reconstruct it to solve my other 2 meter problem. So what I did is I looked at these stainless steel welding rods and I noticed they had a flat spot on them. And this is a flat spot that you insert into the welding apparatus itself to make an electrical connection to be able to weld with. So I figured, wow, I'll just chop it off behind that flat spot, and I'll use that flat spot to mount it to my chassis mount SO239. And it came out really, really nice, just using fasteners and washers. It was really, really rugged, and I'm really happy with it. So I finished building the antenna. I put it on my test stand. I used my super duper antenna analyzer, and you know, the outcome was good, but not great. The SWR is way better, but it's still a little concerning, especially on the high part of the band. So I adjusted the angle of the radiators, and man, it came way down. And now the outcome is pretty darn good. And actually, and I put it up, I mounted it where it was going to be mounted. Here's a picture of it on top of my roof. I did another sweep that for some reason I didn't save, and it's pretty much flat across the 1-to-1 SWR with a slight rise at each extreme end. So this turned out to be a huge success from one point of view. From the other point of view, it's a total failure because I traded a dual band antenna for a single band antenna. So now I have a radio that has 70 centimeter capabilities, but I don't have an antenna. So that's going to be another project. I'll have to think about that one to come up with a solution. So this is project number 3. Look at this thing. I bought it at a yard sale. I was pretty sure it was ham related because it's got an SO239 sticking out of it, but I didn't know what it was. I could see there was a toroid inside of it. So I brought it home. The first thing I looked up the label there, Tentenas, and what this is it's a very inexpensive 49-to-1 transformer sold only on eBay. You interpret that however you want to interpret that, but that's what it is. So to me, it looks like something out of a nightmare from a Dr. Seuss cartoon. I mean, this thing is, I don't know what happened to this thing. But the insides, once I removed the insides, they were like brand new, like they've never been used. Now get this is the real big coincidence. Not too long before I bought this at a yard sale, I built in my backyard a 40-meter half-wave end-fed antenna. Well, come to find out, a 49-to-1 transformer is to a 40-meter half-wave end-fed antenna what peanut butter is to jelly. The two of them just go together perfectly. And what that transformer does is it makes that 40-meter antenna into a 5-band antenna. So I put it on first of all, I had to build a box for it because obviously the box was no longer in good serviceable condition. So this was pretty easy, mounting everything up. I did add on a line strain relief. So I did make a modification to the design. I put my super duper antenna analyzer on it. I have to move this window over. And over here, we have 10 meter, we have 15 meter, we have 20 meter, we have 30 meter, and we have 40 meter. So I took this one antenna and made a 5-band antenna out of it. So how did this project come out? Well, I'm going to put it into the classification of good, but not great. And the reason is twofold. Number one, I take a look at the 40-meter SWR, and actually the lowest SWR is below the band. Now, I just put that antenna up a short time before, and I had the lowest SWR just below the center of the 40-meter band. So maybe adding this 49-to-1 transformer affected it, but what I think really happened, I think my antenna stretched, which is normal for a wire antenna. So, and I didn't see a belly in my antenna because I have it on a pulley system. So first of all, what I have to do, going back to don't do what I did, don't think just because your antenna looks pretty that it's still working properly. I'm convinced that my antenna is stretched and it needs to be trimmed. The second issue is that transformer's rated at 100 watts. Well, that's a coincidence because my radio output is 100 watts maximum. So you think it's a perfect match. But no, getting back to that duty cycle issue, I plan on using CW, which is a high duty cycle mode of communication on 40 meter. And what I'm fearful of because of the high duty cycle is overheating the transformer. I already know it's a very inexpensive transformer. So I think I'm going to have to beef it up here. So don't do what I did. Don't believe your antenna is working properly just because it looks okay from the outside. And when you buy components, buy quality components, but also think about worst case scenario. So some components you have the option of buying different grades, and it might be in your best interest to spend a couple of extra bucks and buy the next highest grade just to make sure you cover any possible worst case scenarios. Okay, so now we're getting to the main part of the show, the whole reason behind tonight's presentation, and that is the Paul McIntyre Cushcraft R7000 vertical multi-band antenna. So first of all, let's explain who Paul McIntyre is. Paul McIntyre is, well, first of all, he's a silent key. He's no longer with us. But he's a longtime ham. He's a longtime member of this club. And I didn't know Paul real well, but I instantly formed the opinion that Paul was a very kind and genuine person, very humble. And then he got a lot of enjoyment from both the amateur radio hobby and specifically the River City Arcs Club. In fact, at the time of his passing, he was actually the president of our club. So I instantly labeled Paul as a good fella. Now, about the antenna, some period of time after his death, his family wanted his antenna farm from the top of his roof taken down, and several of our club members, accommodated that. They went and took these antennas down. Now, this antenna is over 35 feet tall, and that's not counting the mast. So erecting this antenna or taking it down is no easy feat. And then once you get it down, the job's not done. They don't sell a 135 foot long pickup bed truck. So now you got to break it down, not only vertically to fit into a truck, but you can see how big those radials are. Their radials are more than 6 foot across. So now the radios have to be, let's say, contoured to fit within the confines of the pickup truck so you don't scrape everybody's car as you're transporting the antenna from point A to point B. So a lot of work went into taking this antenna down and breaking it down. But being relatively new to the hobby, when I saw this, I just said, wow, I might have bitten off a bit more than I can chew. But Tom assured me that all the pieces were there and this was going to be a great learning experience for me, and that at some point I would be able to share it with the club and use it as a teaching experience. So that's what we're going to try right now. So I transported all of this home. Before I change pictures, let me just point this out. These big tubes are traps. These are band traps that make the antenna a multi-band radio. There's 3 traps, and then there's all kinds of radials and everything. The first thing I noticed is one of the traps was broken. This is it partially disassembled, and right here you can see the end of the winding. Well, the end of the winding was supposed to come out of the trap and attach to the antenna. Until I got this antenna, I didn't even know there were things called traps. And now that I've taken it apart, I still don't know how they work. So luckily, Elmer Phil. I took it over to Elmer Phil's house and he rewound the trap for me. And that's what this picture is. You can see it's no longer a piece of aluminum wire coming out of the trap. It's a copper piece of wire. So the first fix was pretty easy. If you don't have an Elmer, I highly encourage you to get an Elmer. If you don't need an Elmer and you're not an Elmer, I encourage you to become an Elmer. So a couple other things I want to point out about this picture is notice the diameter of the trap is much larger than the diameter of the driven element, which is the antenna. That's going to be relevant in a couple of slides here. And also notice all of this grease on the antenna. That's what they call an anti-oxidizing compound. It's a grease, and it's supposed to keep the antenna from oxidizing while it's sitting on top of your antenna for a longer period of time, so you don't have to take it down so frequently to clean it up. So my second repair was to the matching box. And I know only slightly more about matching boxes than I do traps. But this picture is of the braided cable that attached the matching box to the antenna. It's really, really badly oxidized and it's fraying. So that portion was junk. When you take a look at the matching box itself, it's physically broke and it allowed the weather in for a period of time. And actually, though, it didn't look so bad inside. After looking at this, I thought I could replace the SO239 connector, maybe a couple of wires, and put a new box on it. Well, I purchased no less than 4 boxes and had to return all 4 of them because either they were too big, they were too small, or they were the wrong shape and they would interfere with something. I was wasting way too much time on this, so I found a used box and I purchased the used box, and it was in really good shape. So now that repair is done. The next repair that needs to happen is the antenna needs to be cleaned. You can see this antenna. It's kind of discolored on the top half and not so discolored on the bottom half. Well, this top half was inside of another element. And some of the discoloration you see is old, dried up, anti-oxidizing compound. And the other discolorment that you see is oxidation, which isn't good for continuity. It's not good for conducting electricity. So what has to happen for this 35-foot plus long antenna is there's a lot of cleaning with steel wool, a lot of cleaning with steel wool. And then once you get all the sections nice and shiny, you have to coat them with a fresh coat of anti-oxidizing compound. And some of them are easy. You get to scrub them on the outside, but other ones like this have a piece that fit inside of them. So you have to scrub them on the inside, which was a lot more challenging, but it was a necessary part of the repair. And then one of the last things I had to do to do this is this black item right here is a weather cap. It's a plastic cap that goes on top of the antenna that prevents water from getting into the antenna when it rains. And not only is there one on top of the antenna, but there's one on top of each of the traps, and they're all in terrible condition. Well, I was able to kind of haphazardly put together a weather cap for the top of the antenna. It's not very pretty to look at, but it's functional. It's a little more challenging to put together the weather caps for the traps because the trap is a large diameter and the antenna element's a much smaller diameter. And so you got to make something that's a snug weatherproof fit. We'll get back to that in a little bit. So that was pretty much all the repairs. Now, at this point, the only thing to do is to tune the antenna. So the instruction manual says it's very simple. You just adjust the lengths of the various sections of the antenna. And a section being the section that's below the bottom trap, there's another section above the top trap, and there's two more sections between the traps. So you take a tape measure and you adjust the length of those sections to the specifications in the manual, and voila, you have a tuned antenna. Well, you know, it wasn't that easy to do. First of all, I was by myself, and some of these spans are longer than my arm span. And I didn't have a helper. And to be perfectly honest with you, I wasn't even sure the antenna was going to work. So I just needed to get it kind of sort of close, kind of sort of in the ballpark. And I wanted to put the antenna up just to see if it worked. And I did that. And what do you think the results were? Good, but not great. Now I have to say, actually, it exceeded my wildest expectations. First of all, at that time, I didn't have an antenna analyzer. So the only thing I had to check the antenna with was an auto tuner. And for those of you that have never used an auto tuner, it's another magic box that hooks in series between the antenna and the radio. And then when you want to transmit on a specific frequency, you press the button on the auto tuner, and depending on how far away that antenna is from being resonant on that frequency, it'll make adjustments inside, and you can hear it make adjustments. And sometimes when it's close, it just makes a couple, 3 clicks, the green light comes on and it's done. But if the resonance of the antenna is way off, it makes a lot of noise over many, many seconds. And if you're lucky, the green light comes on. And then sometimes you're not lucky, the green light never comes on, which means the antenna is so far away from being tuned to the frequency that you want to use that the auto tuner can't do it. It exceeds its capabilities. So what it came down to, though, is my auto tuner was able to auto tune 5 of the 7 bands. And one band was the 10-meter band. I was able to use that antenna to participate on our club's 10-meter net. So that alone was a huge win for me. But on the 20-meter band, I contacted Edmonton, Canada, which at that point was the longest contact I had ever made. It's not that far away, but up to then I was contacting San Diego and Las Vegas. So Edmonton, Canada seemed like a long ways away to me. And contrary to popular belief, Canada is its own sovereign nation. Therefore, it was my first DX contact. So I was ecstatic, absolutely ecstatic. So, but I knew I had to take the antenna back down because I needed to do something about the weather caps, and I needed to do a better job tuning the antenna, Well, then I get that super duper antenna tuner. And then I take the super duper antenna tuner over to Phil's house and he shows me how to use the software. And I figure, well, this high-tech method's got to be way better than using a stupid tape measure. So I get a helper and we lay the antenna down. And I connect my antenna analyzer and I got my laptop out there. And my Elmer says, start at the bottom of the antenna and work your way up. And I started trying to tune it with the antenna tuner. And I'll just save you a lot of pain and anguish. It didn't work. The outcome was not great at all. In fact, when I got to the top of the antenna, the 40-meter section, I couldn't even get the SWR on the screen of my antenna analyzer. It was that far off. I had screwed up all the measurements below it so badly that now the 40-meter wasn't even in the range. And my helper was upset. It was hot. He wanted to go home. So we just put the antenna back up and I was very, very frustrated. But I will say this, after a few days, and it might've been a week, I hooked up the antenna analyzer to it and I took this picture. And you know what? This isn't bad. This is 10 meters. That's 12 meters. This is 15 meters. This is 17 meters. This is 20 meters. This is 30 meters. And look at this, that's 40 meters. Now, I'm not trying to say that I achieved some kind of tune on this antenna other than 20 meters, maybe 20 and 12. It's not very tuned, but here's what I learned about this. SWR, the best way to measure SWR on antenna is in situ, which means the antenna is wherever it is. It's going to be wherever it is you're going to use it. So if it's going to be mounted on your roof, the best place to check SWR is in that mounting on your roof. What I learned here is leaning on its side, I could not get any SWR reading on the screen, but yet when I put it vertically, it had a huge impact. In fact, it had a huge impact on all these SWR readings. So I guess the moral of the story is this: don't do what I did. Don't try to measure SWR on antenna that's minimally, at least not off the ground and away from all the other obstructions. You saw the other two antennas that I measured. I had it on a little test stand out in my front yard. So it's not next to a car, it's not next to a motorcycle, it's off the ground. That's not optimum, but at least I can see if I'm in the neighborhood before I do all the work of putting it up on the roof. So it's really important. And the second thing I learned from this, don't do what I did, follow the instructions. Just because you have a super duper antenna analyzer that you don't know how to use with super duper software doesn't mean that's a better way of tuning an antenna. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. They designed it, they manufactured it, they probably know the best way to tune it. Okay, so where does that leave me with the Paul McIntyre Cushcraft R7000 multiband vertical antenna? So the next steps are these. It's pretty simple. I'm going to let it cool off a little bit. I'm going to lay the antenna down one more time. I'm going to disassemble the two other traps and do whatever repairs are necessary, minimally clean them up on the inside. I'm going to make weather caps for them out of heat shrink, what they call high ratio heat shrink. So if you buy regular heat shrink at the hardware store, it just shrinks a little bit. But remember the picture of the trap. I got a large diameter trap and a smaller element. I'll buy a piece of heat shrink that's big enough to slip over the trap, but yet has the ability to shrink all the way down to that much smaller diameter antenna element. So I'll make those two, or I'll make weather caps for all three traps. And then I'm going to tune it exactly how the instructions tell me to tune it. And I'm either going to get a helper so I can do a better job, or maybe I'll make me some measurement jigs so I can do a better job. But based on the screen I showed you, I am super confident that when I get done doing it right, third time's a charm, right? Doing it right this third time, that I'm going to have all 7 bands close enough to be able to tune them using my auto tuner, and then I'll have a fully functional antenna. So there you have it. Zen in the art of reconstruction. Just real quick to summarize what you don't do. Don't just assume your antenna is in good shape. Check it periodically because things can go askew. Use quality components when you repair or you build new homebrew products. And if there's various grades, really consider worst case scenario and perhaps go to a higher grade of part. You don't always need high-tech equipment. Sometimes visual inspections work. You might want to stay away from stainless steel. Stainless steel is very challenging to solder. You need a different kind of solder with a different kind of flux. So you might want to stay from that. Copper works really, really well, although it does require cleaning once in a while. And the best place or the best situation to measure SWR is where your antenna is going to be mounted permanently. That's going to give you the best reading. If you're going to do a test measurement on the ground, do it in a nice clear place and try to get it a few feet off the ground. And always remember, never forget, always follow the instructions. Lots of people tell me instructions are for amateurs. Well, this is amateur radio. We are amateurs. We're proud to be amateurs. So use those instructions. So to summarize my experiences there, I know it sounds probably really dysfunctional to you because very few of these projects came out perfectly like I thought they would. But bottom line, I had a lot of fun doing them. I've learned a lot so far. And since all these projects need more work, I'm going to learn a lot more. But really what it comes down to is when I come home and I park my car in front of my house, the first thing I see is a Paul McIntyre antenna hovering over the roof of my house. And, you know, it's not that I think of all the work and time I put in it so far. What I think about is I think of Paul. And I think of how much joy he got out of this hobby and how much joy he got from our club. And I've come to realize that, you know, not all aspects of this club, this hobby can be measured by high-tech equipment, antenna analyzers, and SWR. A lot of it's just, and most of it, I'll even say, is the human touch. And for that, I am truly, truly grateful. So that's what I have to say about antenna reconstruction. Normally at this time, I would open it up for questions, but as you can probably tell, I'm sure I'm not the best qualified person for questions, but I'll do the best I can. But if people have any suggestions or comments or critiques, I would love to hear them.
Hey, Marty, with your auto tuner, is the antenna usable right now? Is it okay?
Which one?
When you use your auto tuner with the antenna, is it usable right now?
On the vertical,
on the vertical, yeah.
12 and 20, no. On 17 and 20 meters, it's totally usable.
Okay.
And the two other bands, I think it's usable. I'm not just really highly motivated to try it out until I do the final tune on it.
Okay, all right. That's cool.
Your friend with the other J pole, the attic mounted one that had the same deterioration. Did you ever find out what his was? I mean, yours was weather, but his was indoors.
See, I don't know if mine was weather. I sealed mine when I put it together. So it might be condensation.
That would make sense. You save the water.
Yeah.
That's entirely possible.
But I'm hoping to talk to him. I see him at certain meetings once in a while, so I'll ask him the next time I see him.
Good question, huh?
Okay, I do have a question, first of all, or a comment. When you're doing these kind of projects where the antennas are exposed to the rain environment, you have to be really concerned about contacts between dissimilar metals because of galvanic reaction between the metals. So what are you going to do with that copper wire coil that you have screwed to the aluminum? Are you going to try and do something to prevent that from from corroding over time due to galvanic action?
Yeah, so it depends on what I find with the other two traps. Originally, I bought wire that I thought was the exact same diameter, but when we got to Phil's house, he found it was slightly a different diameter, the wrong diameter. So that's why we use copper. So if I'm going to rewind the other two traps, I'll just have to make double sure that I get the right diameter wire, and I'll rewind them all. It's really easy to rewind them.
Okay, yeah, I want to show also something that I've used as end caps. This is it's a PVC. I think it's PVC. No, it's a vinyl UV resistant cap, and I found these at Tap Plastics, which they come in different sizes, as you can see here. They have 1 inch and 2 inch and 2 and 3/4 inch. And those you can also work. I used some of those caps for antenna projects of my own to weatherproof. You can make holes in them to fit things through and then seal them with silicone. So that's another option besides using the heat shrink. I was just going to suggest that.
Great suggestion. Thank you.
Mhm. I like your 49-to-1 transformer too.
I'm so lucky.
Yeah, I made one myself here in a, this is a dip container. It is something you would normally throw out in the recycle, and have a toroid in there that I wound, and a BNC connector on one end, and then I have just screw terminals on either side. This, of course, won't take any stress or anything, but it's low power and it'll do this, the same transformation. This is the fun part about ham radio, building stuff like that. It's really easy to do. And with that equipment that you have for testing, that's great, but anybody could do something like that with a nano VNA. Also,
Sure.
Very, very cheap. And I have to say something, if you're interested in getting one of those type nano VNAs or tiny SAS, it's probably a good idea to do it soon, because they're talking about being a shortage of the chips that they use in those. The SI 5351s are in short supply. So those items may be difficult to get until they finally catch up with manufacturing the chips. And that's something that's impacting the availability of a lot of ham radio equipment as well. You could just ask anybody in the HRO store that they have trouble getting product on the shelves because the integrated circuits, the chips, are in short supply. It's also affecting new cars, as everybody knows as well.
Marty,
Yes.
I had a question as well. I had a trap that fell and broke the end caps like you're describing. So it wasn't weather related. It was just falling off the antenna. And I ordered a set to replace them. But my thought was they flex in the wind. So those rigid plastic is actually not just a weather seal. It's also helps the structure of your antenna as it whips around in the wind. They're designed, I don't know your particular antenna, but maybe 90-mile-an-hour winds if it happens before it falls off or breaks up. So you're losing the rigid parts. You're keeping it weather sealed against rain, but you're losing the structure of the rigidness of the original plastic. So I ended up buying the end caps from the antenna manufacturer for my replacement. On my next trip up, I'm going to put them in place.
So I tried calling Cushcraft. I tried calling MFJ. They said call Cushcraft. I tried for days, different times throughout the day, because they're in Canada. Busy, instantly busy. I'm not sure if they closed down for COVID, but I tried many times, just got a busy signal.
Yeah, I got high gain, but they're the same end plastic pieces. And since they're the same company, they're now MFJ. I think
Sweet.
you should be able to get them.
Good to know. Thanks.
I have them in an email. I can send them to you if you like. I was successful in getting them.
And if you need an extra pair of hands, just call Tom and I'll send you.
We are virtually neighbors in distance. I have the same issue with hands.
Yeah. Oh,
Well, let me say, Marty, it's Wilson. I appreciate your presentation. Nice work. Just curious, what kind of antioxidant paste is that? Where do you source that?
You can buy it at Home Depot
Oh,
in the electrical section.
okay. Thank you.
I don't know the brand name off the top of my head. It's out in my garage.
yeah.
But I had somebody gave me a tube that partially full. I used all of that, went to Home Depot, found the exact same brand, bought it there.
Is it made for different types of metal, or is it universal for all kinds of metals?
You know, there's a lot of controversy about this, depending on who you talk to. They sell some compounds that actually have ground up metal in the grease. So it actually enhances conductivity. But some use copper and nickel, which are good. Others use aluminum, which is not so good, or at least people claim. So there's a lot of debate on what to use. Some people just use silicone grease. Some people use dielectric, which doesn't make sense because dielectric insulates. But when you squeeze it by making a mechanical connection, in the case of this antenna, it displaces the dielectric grease from the metal that's contacting each other, and it squeezes it into areas that have irregularities into them or the openings, which seal the openings. So yeah, it's kind of controversial using dielectric, but it's common in the marine industry. That's how they keep their connections clean out in the ocean.
Nice work. Thank you, Marty.
Sure, thanks for the question.
Wilson, if I may add to the answer to your question, when I was working with automotive electricity, I was able to purchase an anti-oxidizing paste similar to what Marty used, and they come in really small sachet. I think I bought it from O'Reilly's and or AutoZone, and I think it serves the same purpose, so you can try that in small quantities. Maybe Chris has more advice. I see Chris Huber.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Am I coming through?
I hear you.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I had the mixer set up. The stuff at Home Depot is made by Ideal. It's been around for decades. It's called No Knox, and it was designed to be used on aluminum wire for electrical wiring. So it's pretty inexpensive, and I think they sell small quantities of it, probably in a 4 or 6 ounce tube. It'll last you a long time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
I would imagine on that copper to aluminum connection that Carol was referencing, that putting some of the NOx on that might help keep it from doing the electrolysis thing. You know, to keep it from interacting with the, because that's a little what you're doing when you're putting it on, when you're making an electrical connection with aluminum wire. Very often it's going into a box that already is going to have copper in it. And you want to interfere with that interaction. You just want electricity to flow, not.
I think most of the time you just want your antenna to work today.
Well, there is that. There is that, but we're trying to prevent interference. So I'm just thinking that it would make sense, because we put it on battery terminals to keep them clean enough for electricity to flow. And that's down at 12 volts. So if 12 volts can get through it, 100 watts should not have any problem. But we still want it to be able to, interfere with different metals and all that sort of thing, the electrolysis thing. So.
Marty, I have a question.
Me too.
Sure.
Since you use the stainless welding rods that you cut off to use the flatter end, to make use of the flat part of it, how did you manage to make it circular to fit the tiny bolts and assemble them?
I didn't. I put bolts, I put screws, nuts, and washers through the 4 holes of the SO239, and then put the flat part of the stainless steel antenna in there between the bolt and the body of the center of the SO239. and it fit perfectly.
Oh,
Didn't
okay.
interfere with the coax connector or anything.
It was just sandwiched between washer and.
And then clamped together with the fasteners.
Okay, thank you.
By the way, that flat place on the rod, that's to give them a flat place to put the nomenclature that says what the material content of that rod is. Not
really?
nothing to do with connecting. It just to tell you what it is.
Didn't know that. Thanks.
Yeah.
And by the way, the leftover pieces you have after you trim them down to a quarter wave, which is 19¼ inches, the leftovers are more than long enough to make a 70 centimeter quarter wave ground plane antenna. Now, if I do that, I'm gonna have to add another coax and a coax switch, but I like my ground plane antennas.
Hey, they work.
Yeah.
And they're frequently small.
Yeah, this one's gonna be small.
Yeah.
So Marty, how did you join the copper wire to the aluminum wire? I just read that soldering wouldn't work, and there are welding techniques that can work. I'm wondering if you use brass to interconnect them or something.
We're talking on the trap, correct?
Yeah.
No, we removed the aluminum wire. Once Phil discovered I brought the wrong aluminum replacement wire, we removed the aluminum wire, and he just happened to have the perfect diameter copper wire out in a shed. So we wound the whole thing with copper.
And then you connected it to a screw that was metal?
Just steel.
Correct. Inside there's a screw, and then outside there's a screw.
Okay, so it's steel.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
So he's got copper and steel and aluminum all in the same fitting. It sounds like tape time for me. So, yeah. And we used to, when we were building our amplifiers, we used stainless steel screws as fasteners to hold the various aluminum components together. And we discovered that stainless is worse about evoking a electrolysis response in the aluminum than just conventional steel is.
Wow.
Which, yeah, I thought it was kind of strange too. I don't know whether it's because it happens to like the chrome in it or some stupid thing, whatever the alloy is. But we ended up, if we knew we were going to have to take it apart and anytime soon, we put the no-ox paste on it because it otherwise would gall and if it's an external part, you don't want to have to dig at it to get it apart. So we made a point of making it removable by putting the no-ox on it.
Hey, Marty, what did you do for lightning protection? Assuming that thing is going to go up on your roof, is it?
It's not going to go on the roof. It's supposed to be mounted 8 feet off the ground.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm going to put a lightning arrestor on it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's tall enough to be an invite.
Oh, that thing's a behemoth.
30-something feet, yeah.
It's an absolute behemoth.
Yeah.
I have a little
Numbers
point.
11.
You mentioned about using the rest of the welding rods to make a 70 centimeters in, but then you would need a second coax. A couple of years ago, I saw on the internet a project where you would take the rod and you would bend it, and you actually end up with two of them, and you end up with a dual vertical dipoles, and you trim each of them for the 2 meters and for the 70 centimeters with a single coax. So that may be an alternative, and I'm using it right now, and it seems to be working okay.
And you get good performance on both bands, huh?
Well, I don't do long distance on either band, but all the connections that we do have here on the 430, on the 400 repeater for the SSTV, as well as the 2 meters locally, it seems to be okay. I'll see if I can find the link and send it to you.
Yeah, thanks. I have 2 pieces of LMR 400 and a piece of 213 going through my wall. So I'm not sure I have any more capacity to put another cable through my wall into my shack.
Yeah, so having one that you can work with 2 bends at the same time may or may not help. But anyway, a great presentation, by the way.
What I'm going to probably have to do.
I made a quarter wave ground plane that looked pretty much the same as yours. I made it with some copper wire, but now you've mentioned it, I've used that on 440 as well. And now I better go and check the SWR.
Maybe you don't want to.
No, maybe I shouldn't. I know that it worked.
Now you know what that smell was.
Right. Now I'm going to go and check immediately after this.
Yeah, a 2-meter antenna, like a 2-meter ground plane, generally will also work on 440 because it's on the third harmonic, so it's going to be pretty much resonant as well. The radiation pattern won't be ideal, but gee whiz, a lot of people commonly use just a regular 19-inch 2-meter whip also on 440. It'll work on both bands.
Okay.
You're okay, Kev.
Okay.
Sounds like.
I'll still check just in case.
Nice to know what your SWR. We're supposed to do that every so often anyway, right? Just to make sure everything's copacetic.
That's true.
So,
That's true.
I learned my lesson.
I also want to just again want to thank Marty for the tribute to Paul McIntyre. He very tragically lost his life. He was murdered while he was doing public service in his studies to become a social worker. And that is horrible what happened to him. He was very much given to public service and to helping others. And he was president of the club at the time. He passed away. That was back in February of last year. And unfortunately, we were unable to have a memorial service for him because right after that is when they had the lockdown due to the pandemic. We did have one club meeting where we did make some mention of him and gave a kind of a tribute at the time. That was back in March of last year, but I think those who know him, those who knew him, will have some very fond memories of how passionate he was to help others in enjoying this hobby.
Indeed.
And if I may add, for the benefit of those who didn't know Paul McIntyre, he is a blind ham. So it was his presentation in one of the clubs that I saw him operate his handy talkie with adaptations on how to connect to others by feel, and then of course by hearing. And that's really amazing. It moved me. Like who cannot do amateur radio when even the blind, those who are impaired with mobility are hams. They actually have a group called the Handy Hams, and I support them. And it's really touching. So that's my input.
Yeah, I think he belonged to a group that included several other sight impaired hams, and that they were all reaching out to the community to help other people get into amateur radio, as well as just feeling like they were part of the community in general. And so he did a lot of that kind of social work too. He was really missed. I'm wondering if at this late date, if Barb is going to be able to have a memorial for him. There was hopes that we could do that sort of thing, when social gatherings were again acceptable. So I don't know how that'll go.
I, for one, would support such an effort.
Yeah. Carol, have you spoken with Barb recently?
Not very recently, but I haven't spoken to her since the recent relaxation and opening of some public venues. I don't know what the status is of things now with the recurrent surge in COVID-19. I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the chat if anybody wants to go there, and they'll actually be able to see the video, that video that Jojo is talking about, where Paul is demonstrating how he programmed his handheld radio so a sightless person can use it. And I'll go ahead and I'll put that in there. There are links in there. And I guess we'll also add it on the YouTube once this video goes and gets posted on YouTube.
Yeah. Any chance you'd want to reach out to Barb and see if she has any plans?
I'll be glad to do that, sure.
And Paul Gross is, we never did the memorial for him either for the same reason.
Yeah, Paul Gross, they had a private one for the family. I know that. They decided to do a very personal private one for the family.
Okay.
You're talking about DIY? Yeah, he was very active on coming in and supporting us on the health and welfare net when we started and throughout the whole year.
Yeah. He's another person that will be missed greatly, and he was very big on helping the club.
Are there any thoughts about reconvening in-person meetings, or are we still on hiatus because of the new research?
I think the biggest thing that we've discussed is more a matter of venue. The sewer district building where we were holding our meetings is not scheduling anybody yet. And so unless we were to find an alternative meeting place that would accommodate all of us, it's still up in the air. It's still on hiatus.
Thank you.
Well, since everything's quiet here, I just want to remind everyone that we're having net night tomorrow. So get on our 2-meter net, please, at 8 p.m. 10-meter net, 8:30, and slow scan also at 9. Just a reminder.
Yes,
I'll be there.
And with Wilson back from the CW class, I think he's going to host the SSTV net in Morse code tomorrow.
I can give it a shot. I got to figure out how to get it. I'll do a audible interface for CW. CTO. Thank you.
That would be a variety of noises more than normal.
Well, I do have my code practice oscillator from class. It's a
Carols.
That's right. Sounds like an MFJ.
Yeah.
I'll be doing the 2-meter net tomorrow. So QRS.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else for tonight?
Good presentation. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Marty. Yeah, good job.
Yeah, good job, Marty.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation. Thank you, Marty.
Thanks, Marty.
I think, Tom, you'll have to do the video upload since you got it going on yours, right?
Yeah, I realized that. So I'll do that. Sure. I have better bandwidth than a while ago, so it should go okay, I think.
Good stuff. All right. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
All
So
right.
long.
Good evening.
Okay.
Right.
See
Thanks.
you around.
All right. Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Hey, Jojo,
Oh, yes.
are you going to be at the shop tomorrow by any chance?
Yes.
Okay, I thought I'd stop by on the bike.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll get there first.
I'll provide the mask. Don't worry about it.
Okay, no problem.